Even in the dire situations of a war, love and friendship can bloom. Where destruction lays its path springs hope for better days to come. That is what our main protagonist, Stefan, learns by the end of the movie. It starts with an exposition of the movie's setting. It's 1944 in Warsaw. Nazi Germany has been occupying Poland for 5 years. When news of the advance of the Soviet military comes to light, it gives hope for the youngsters to defeat their occupiers. Warsaw is preparing for an uprising. The militants plan to start it when the Germans begin to leave their city, so that by the time their allies arrive, they will have reinforcements. Stefan is a young man who lives with his mother Hannah and little brother Jasio. They are close with each other, with Jasio often looking up to his older brother. That day, he leaves for work when his close friend, Kama, walks up to him. She is holding a basket of vegetables, but she's clutching a gun hidden below the produce. She asks him to bring it to someone named Ariadna. Stefan knows why Kama has a gun and to whom he should give it to. Kama is a member of the Home Army, an underground militant group formed in Warsaw. When Stefan crosses the street, he looks back at his house, where Hannah and Jasio are looking out for him through the window. He makes some silly dance steps, then salutes his family, who bows at him. It's like a ritual that shows the close bond they have as a family. On his way to work, one can see the evidence of the Nazi Germany occupation and the strong prejudice the occupiers show against the Polish citizens. One stark example of this is the segregation system in trams. Stefan sees that the German citizens are comfortable in the front with lots of space, while he and others are almost hanging at the end of the vehicle. He feels injustice, but for now, he must do Kama's request. He works at a manufacturing company. Upon arriving there, he dons his uniform and helps others transfer crates of products. When one of the workers tells him a pile of crates isn't to be moved, he decides to temporarily hide the gun there. Then he does his job. But when he looks back, he sees a German officer seemingly interested in those crates. The soldier looks at him and orders him to put the crates in his car. Stefan stops in apprehension. If the gun is discovered, it can cost him his life. The officer is annoyed with him. Fortunately, the owner of the place comes to his rescue. He tells Stefan to follow the order, while explaining to the officer that he is still young and new to his work. To Stefan's surprise, the gun is missing. After transferring the crates, the officer asks for his work papers. Upon receiving it, he gives Stefan a whip on his face, then he rips his papers. He insults Stefan by calling him a pig that has the audacity to defy him. After that, the officer leaves. The owner secretly gives him the gun, saying he found it first. He doesn't know why a gun is there, but he doesn't want to have anything to do with it and Stefan. So he fires him. That night, Kama learns about what happened and apologizes to him. She assures him she'll get him new work papers and help him find a job. He thanks her before welcoming Jasio and playing with him. Kama proceeds to her apartment building, but before entering, she looks back at Stefan with love in her eyes. She's been nursing romantic feelings for him for a long time, but it looks like it isn't mutual. The next day, Stefan and Kama meet with their other friend, Beksa, another member of the Home Army. The two members have decided to give their friend a temporary job in one of their warehouses. Stefan initially doesn't want to join because he prefers a quiet life, but he does understand the sentiments of his friends for joining the underground militant group, and he needs a job. Upon arriving there, Goral welcomes him and gives him his uniform. At one point during his work, a truck arrives, bringing in more supplies for the army. Stefan sees more members like Beta, a pretty blonde, and Rogol. But the one that catches his eye is the girl who sits in the passenger seat. He can only see her through the side view mirror, but he's caught by her innocent beauty. That night, he dreams of her swimming underwater. She gestures at him to keep quiet about a secret only she knows about. The next day, Stefan is invited to a picnic by the lake. His friends are already in the swimsuit, shouting cheerfully at the girl alone at the sandbar in the middle. He learns her name is Ala, and she's Alexander's sister. Apparently, Alexander is teaching Ala how to swim, so he leaves her to swim on her own by the sandbar. Everyone votes for Stefan to get her. When he reaches her, it's clear she's afraid. He offers his hand to her in assurance that she's safe. And that's when Ala lays her eyes on Stefan. In the next scene, we see Stefan trying on his father's military uniform. Just like all little boys when they see their brother in uniform, Jasio gets excited and demands to try them on, too. The two of them have fond memories of their father and are proud of his bravery in the military. But Hannah doesn't share the same sentiments. She demands Stefan not to join anything that may cost him his life. She can't bear to lose one of her sons. However, the next day, Stefan joins the Home Army by pledging in front of his friends. Then they conduct a target shooting practice to see Stefan's skills, in which they find him an excellent shot. Ala finds him amusing and interesting. Later, they get invited to dinner at Alexander's and Ala's house. Stefan hears the mother commenting how Ala seems to always daydream, as if it's a nuisance. But he doesn't find it weird that Ala is more focused on her imagination. Instead, he finds it endearing. His attraction to her becomes stronger when later, she accidentally enters the shed where he is. The boys have gone out for a night swim at the nearby lake, leaving him and contemplating about his joining the army. Ala enters and thinking no one is inside, throws her towel onto the bench. Seeing her drives out all thoughts of apprehension in Stefan's head. He joins the boys, who are merrily swimming in the lake. They hear the sounds of guns, signaling the eve of the uprising. For them, the sense of camaraderie in joining a patriotic cause is enough for celebrations. They have high hopes for a successful revolution. August 1, 1944. All the members of the underground militant group are being called to assemble. Stefan has to make his leave discreet, but Jasio finds him packing his clothes. The boy cries to his brother not to leave, but he's made up his mind. In the end, he runs across the street and looks back at his house where only Jasio looks out from the window. Stefan makes his last silly dance steps in salutation before walking away for good. He meets his friends at Wola, where one of the many groups of the resistance is assembled. They meet Cabra, their group captain, who tells them their first mission for that day. But before they get deployed, they all gather in front of the factory where their commander gives a speech. Most of the participants are young men and women, their youthful optimism giving them the strength to join this endeavor. Their commander says the Soviets are already near the outskirts of Warsaw. The uprising is predicted to last for 3 days, enough time for the Soviets to fully enter the city and support them. However, even if they are considered reinforcements, the commander warns them to treat the Bolsheviks with reservation, and reminds them that their allegiance should be with the Polish chief commander and the home army. With that, he disperses them. Cabra's group proceeds directly to the location of their first mission. They are to save the imprisoned Jews from an abandoned school occupied by the Germans. One can see from their movements, and in the general maneuvers of their captain, that they all have no idea what they're getting into. They all think that as long as they drive out the Germans, their city will be free. They get their first taste of reality when they see one of their comrades get a headshot. They're lucky only 3 German soldiers are there, with one losing his life from Bex's grenade, and the other falling from their barrage of bullets. Stefan charges into the next room, tackles the remaining soldier, and corners him with a pistol. They take the soldier as a prisoner, and then they eventually release the Jews. One of them, the 15-year-old Adam, insists on joining the uprising. By the end of the 3rd day, they have managed to secure most of the town of Wola, despite sustaining heavy losses. They celebrate in the streets, and even talk about some leisure activities they can finally do. That night, Cabra's unit is sitting along with others and having a great time. Kama and Ala volunteer to get more wine from their reserve. Kama tells Ala to go check the outside of the barracks while she will check inside. In truth, she just wants some alone time with Stefan, who is currently stationed by the window as the lookout. From his position, he sees a lone German soldier seemingly checking out their headquarters. He is about to shoot when he sees Ala wandering in that direction. He leaves his post to follow her. He finds her playing with sand, oblivious to the possible dangers around her. He throws himself in front of her, just as the enemies start shooting at them. Reinforcements arrive to take care of the enemies. Stefan orders Ala to run away, but before she does, she kisses him. That brief moment between them seems to have slowed time down, and even made the bullets swerve around them. Ala leaves Stefan reeling from that kiss. The next day, Cabra reprimands Stefan for leaving his post without asking someone to replace him. He reminds his subordinates that this is war, not a playtime when they can pretend to shoot enemies. He assigns Gorl to be his assistant. The first thing he does is to demote Stefan to do house chores. He joins the others in the cemetery that's part of their headquarters. One of the captains comes and announces grave news. The Soviets have stopped in their advance, while reinforcements for the German forces have arrived. They should expect an assault anytime soon. While everyone gears up, Stefan approaches the captain to ask if there are units stationed behind the wall. It so happens that his house where his family lives is just a few blocks away. The captain ignores his questions, saying everyone has someone they left. Then the captain calls a young boy and orders him to climb a tree and serve as a lookout. However, after only a few minutes, that boy becomes the first casualty when the Germans start their counterattack. Everyone hides behind the tombstones to avoid the barrage of bullets and grenades that are more powerful than their arsenal. When Stefan sees the captain getting mortally wounded, he decides to run for it. He manages to avoid getting hit before he gets shot in his shoulder, causing him to fall into an open grave. It's already night when he wakes up. Despite the pain, he persists in returning to his home. Unfortunately, it has been destroyed by the shelling, and his family is nowhere to be found. He falls asleep again, only to wake in the morning to the sounds of shouting and crying. When he looks down, he sees the Germans rounding up the citizens whom they've captured from hiding. Among them are Hannah and Jasio. Hannah sees her son from the window. She furtively signals him to keep quiet. And then, the inevitable happens. Every civilian gets executed, including Hannah and Jasio. Witnessing his family's demise is too much for Stefan. He becomes catatonic. The next thing he knows, he's in a hospital in Staromiesto, his friends surrounding him. They discuss how lucky they are to find him there, alive. The Germans continue their retaliation by conducting air raids and bombings. One of the structures hit is the hospital where Stefan is. Ala and Kama see this. Kama is about to go there when Ala reminds her she needs to report it. As the runner for their group, Kama is torn between her duty and her worry over Stefan. In the end, she chooses her duty. She feels agitated as she waits for Cabra to tell him about Stefan. However, the captain says they need to leave Staromiesto via the sewers. Teary-eyed, Kama insists on rescuing Stefan, but the captain says the punishment for desertion is execution. Kama has no choice but to go with her group and hope for Stefan to be safe. Unbeknownst to her, Alea is the one who runs to the hospital. She has feelings for Stefan, and just like Kama, she wants to save him herself. Corpses litter the hospital hallways as she looks for him. She finds him on the floor, still alive but catatonic. She urges him to walk, but in his stupor, it's unfortunate to say he's only dragging her down. Despite this, Alea persists. Even if she temporarily leaves him on the sidewalk to find shelter, or even if another air bombing happens nearby that showers them with heat, she won't leave Stefan. Eventually, they take shelter at the convent up the street. The nuns go back and forth to attend to the wounded and provide simple food. Alea looks around while Stefan sleeps in her arms. She sees one of the captains. Using her charm, she manages to find out the militants' plan, escape to the next town through the sewers. With this information, she gets ready for their escape. The next day, air bombings continue as the home army fails to secure a safe passage from the Germans shooting. Alea has to fight her way to the front so she and Stefan can enter the manhole. Down there, many elders are traveling to the next town, but it doesn't protect them from the shellings. Alea becomes claustrophobic and hallucinates about Stefan becoming a demon, or being crushed between the walls of the sewers. Covered in dirt and muck, it's a great relief for her to get pulled out and be given clean water. The town they are in hasn't experienced the hell the Germans unleashed on Wola and Stare Maisto. A war aide points them to a nearby bank that has been converted to a temporary hospital to receive the wounded escapees, as well as German war prisoners. Alea and Stefan clean each other, their inhibitions about their gone because of their situation. Stefan kisses her, and that's when he wakes up from his stupor. The very next day, the bank where they are becomes the next target of air bombing. A wounded German is brought in by a nurse. Stefan gets filled with anger as he remembers how he lost his family. He wants to exact revenge on the soldier, just so he can get the satisfaction of avenging his family and country. But a doctor gets to it first. Stefan realizes that even if he takes away the life of the soldier, nothing changes. This futile uprising will go on, and his family will never come back. The only option he sees is to fight until the end. After the bombing ceases, Stefan and Alea stand by the side to watch the soldiers bring in the caskets of their fallen comrades. Then, from across the street, they see Cabra's unit merrily walking towards the priest. They want him to marry Cabra and Beta. Their sunny disposition is so unnatural against the solemn aftermath of the bombing. One can say they haven't experienced any significant losses, nor been faced with a situation where they are face to face with death. Alea pulls Stefan away from them, not wanting to associate with them again. That night, Cabra and others sing around the bonfire, a ray of optimism in the middle of their dire situation. Just a few feet away from them, Stefan and Alea sit, listening to them. Then, he invites her to dance. Alea plans to get out of the city with him. They can leave everything behind and start anew. Just the two of them. That has always been her plan ever since she fell in love with him. However, he has other things in his mind. That night, he leaves her to rejoin Cabra's group. When Alea wakes up the next morning, Stefan is no longer with her. She asks around if they have seen him. One of the nurses says he has rejoined the group from Stare Maisto and they are now headed to Cherniakow. But to get there, she needs a pass. In the next scene, we see Alea inside the office of one of the commanders. She makes up a story about how she needs to follow her brother to Cherniakow. The commander gladly signs her pass, but for a price. He gropes her, which earns him a slap. He smacks her hard, then turns around to undress. When he faces Alea again, he gets hit by a vase. Wasting no time, Alea runs to the barricade that the home army has set up. Many citizens are trying to get past it so they can reach the town. But the militants are strict because the Germans guarding the street won't show mercy on anyone crossing it, regardless of whether the person is a soldier or civilian. For context, Cherniakow is the town near the river. If anyone manages to cross it, they can find refuge with the Soviet army. However, for the past few days, the Soviets have never arrived. The home army has been relying on them to help drive the Germans out, but for some unknown reasons, they stopped their advance, leaving the militant group relying on their limited supplies. They have resumed their movements, reaching the other side of the river. From the barricade, the soldiers are given hope because finally, they have the help they need. To their horror, the Soviets destroy the bridge connecting Cherniakow to the town across, effectively cutting them off for German slaughter. Amidst the soldiers' despair, Alea takes advantage to cross the barricade to the empty street guarded by the Germans. Gathering all her courage, she runs across the street. She's very lucky to escape the shooting with only a graze. A home army soldier fetches her and brings her to the underground refuge where other citizens are located. The situation there is pitiful, with many elders sleeping on the floor. There is even a mother who's trying to comfort her infant child. But even there, they are not safe. A German soldier throws a bomb through an opening in the street. Almost everyone gets annihilated. Alea sees that the mother is gone, but the infant is still whimpering. She grabs the infant and runs with other survivors to the nearby hospital. Even there, the medical staff is not enough to cater to both soldiers and civilians. Sadly, the infant doesn't make it. A nurse takes it from Ala, leaving her to look at the destruction and misery around her. She still doesn't know where Stefan is, and the city's situation worsens every day. Unbeknownst to her, Stefan is just in another section of the hospital, along with Cabra and the rest of the unit. The leader's arm has been amputated. They are there to be endorsed to another captain. A few feet away from them, a bitter German soldier keeps on insulting them. His name is Cross, and he keeps saying his comrades will come for him and annihilate them all. Stefan looks intently at him. He can see that Cross is simply putting up a brave face, but he's deeply scared. At this moment, he knows that his fate is up to the ones he calls stupid Poles. Eventually, Commander Czarny comes to take Cabra's men. He looks dubiously at them because they look young. But in this situation, it's considered a miracle that they even made it out alive up until this day. He tells them they plan to take over the street where the Germans are situated. This is to create a safe passage towards the river for the soldiers. With that said, they all follow Czarny to their mission. The Germans are posted on the top floor of the buildings not yet destroyed by the bombings. Czarny plans to get close to those buildings using the Rubles as their cover. However, this plan doesn't work because they are immediately met by an artillery barrage. Most of their men fall, including Rogel. They retreat to think of another plan. Stefan takes a gun for himself. Surprisingly, this is his first weapon ever since the uprising began. It's nighttime, and Stefan spends his time alone by the window, serving as the lookout. Kama enters the room and shares the cigarette he's smoking. Then, she seduces Stefan. The seduction ends with them having a coupling on the floor. The fire between them carries on until the next day, when they follow Gorel through the basement of one of the buildings. Through serious effort and many losses, they manage to take over the building. Stefan runs into one of the main rooms, finding a soldier cowering in fear. At first, he tries to find the humanity in him by giving the soldier his gun. But in the end, his hate for the Germans fills him. He pulls the trigger, ending the soldier's life. Czarny's group stays in the building, as they consider this a successful takeover. Meanwhile, Ala stays in the hospital to comfort the children. She tells a story about a boy and a girl who lived simple lives in a quiet village. As she wipes the wounds of one of the she overhears a man telling the nurse that small boats are being prepared by the river, but only soldiers are allowed to ride there. The nurse incidentally looks at Ala, and instantly, they have a shared understanding of what must be done. The nurse tells her to go to the headquarters to treat the wounded. But in fact, she wants her to relay this news. Along the way, she can hear the announcement from the Germans that they will conduct a ceasefire from 12 noon to 1 p.m. Aircraft fly above them, spreading white papers for their surrender. They will allow any soldiers who will defer, and the patients and personnel from hospitals, to have a safe passage across the river. When she reaches the headquarters, she finally finds Stefan slumped on the floor. He's surprised to see her there. Ala could have berated him for leaving her. Instead, she cleans his wound and replaces the bandage. After that, she looks quietly at him, trying to communicate what she wants to say. She badly wants to escape, to take the Germans' offer. She also wants him to come with her. But looking into his eyes, she can see that Stefan has chosen to stay here. That's why he left her in the first place. She mourns the fact that she loves him so much she can't leave without him. While they are silently communicating, Kama watches them. She finally realizes that it was Ala who rescued Stefan from the hospital, and that they had been together before he rejoined them. She feels betrayed by her friend and by him, especially after the sweet moment she shared with him last night. While the announcement is still going on, Czarny addresses everyone in the group. He threatens anyone who will wave the white cloth. The word surrender is not acceptable in this group. At this point, Ala interrupts him and pleads with him to allow the patients from the hospital to evacuate. Czarny won't listen to her, saying there's no point in doing so because they're all going to perish in the end. Ala insists on the information that dinghies are being prepared to cross the river. One soldier pulls her out of the room. Stefan stands up to support Ala's request. He says no one in this room will surrender, but they should give the chance to the wounded in the hospital. In no time, evacuation proceedings are underway. Ala sees Kama trying to help an injured lady. She knows that Kama is angry with her for leaving them and saving Stefan. Once close friends, they now dislike each other because they love the same man. By the end of the ceasefire, Ala returns to the hospital to comfort the remaining patients and while Kama rejoins her group. When Stefan asks where Ala is, Kama gives him the cold shoulder. The home army is making their last stand against the German envoys coming their way. The first ones to arrive check the hospital to see if there are any insurgents remaining. They find Cross, whom they immediately allow back to their ranks. Unfortunately, Cabra and Beta, who chose to stay there, decide to end on their terms. The shelling resumes, leaving no trace of any Polish life in their tracks. For the next few minutes, the movie shows an intense exchange of artillery between the home army and the Germans. The former is brave to be in their position, returning fire with whatever little arsenal they have. The latter is merciless in eliminating the insurgents, intent on quelling their defiance against the regime. Soon, the fight ends, with the home army running out of ammunition. The members have seen their friends and wives fall one by one, and it is only now that they realize the full impact of the war. The once optimistic group is now bathed in despair as their instincts to save their lives kick in. Goral is in manic mode. He fights Stefan when the latter stops him from wearing a white bandana. Czarny walks in and tells them to pull themselves together, then walks out again. Stefan says he'll lead all of them out of there. They only have to be brave and risk what they have left in themselves. Just as they leave the room, Goral ends everything there. And so, the little group rushes outside, with Stefan leading them. They manage to take down 2 Germans, but the ones hiding inside the buildings take them out one by one. Then, a panzer turns around the corner, a monstrous mechanical weapon that has no regard for human life. Kama faces it bravely. She tells Stefan that Alad is still in the hospital. She knows she won't survive, but at least she can let Stefan go with someone who will love him. The panzer shoots them, critically hitting Kama. Stefan goes to her, willing her to survive. But she eventually breathes her last breath. Stefan hears Bexa calling out to him, ordering him to run. Stefan has no choice but to follow. Bexa's last attempt at defying the Germans is by cursing them and telling them the world will know the atrocities they've done to the city. In the hospital, Alai is alone with the children who didn't make it to the evacuation. A few moments later, a German soldier comes down and sees them. He takes an interest in Alai and her innocent beauty. One can only imagine what her fate may have been after the encounter. That night, Stefan returns to the hospital to look for Alai. But what he sees is a mound of corpses, discarded like mannequins. At that point, he thinks there is no point in surviving. He takes his gun, and just as he's about to use it, a German soldier walks in. It's Cross. Now, he can see the fear and desperation in Stefan's eyes. For some unknown reason, he takes the gun and fires it beside Stefan. Then he calls out to his comrades that no one alive is left there. In the next scene, we see Stefan dragging himself among the rubles. He eventually reaches the shore. With all his remaining strength, he swims across the river until he reaches the next land. When he looks back, he sees the city of Warsaw engulfed in flames. The last scenes of the movie show the city slowly transforming into the metropolitan that it is today, signifying that the sacrifices made by the brave souls in the uprising are not in vain.